It's time to confront the unshakable truths about how economies function. Here's the undeniable reality. When the government intervenes with monetary policies that flood the market with liquidity, disconnected from the production of goods and services, it inevitably triggers inflation.
This morning, Americans are paying the price for rising inflation. From the grocery store to housing and transportation, prices were 3.1% higher in January compared to a year ago, which was worse than analysts expected. In response, the Dow plunging 500 points.
Any short-term relief is just that, short-term, masking the long-term damage that will follow. The global population depends on what's produced and traded. While currency facilitates these exchanges, injecting excess dollars into the market is nothing but a temporary, illusionary fix. Eventually, the harsh reality of actual goods and services catches up, exposing the self-destructive folly of devaluing one's own currency.
As the November election approaches, inflation and soaring housing costs are top of mind for voters across the nation. Based on a recent CBS News analysis, rent has increased by more than 30% in more than two-thirds of the 200 largest metro areas in the U.S.
The pandemic delivered a harsh wake-up call. Halt production while inflating the money supply, and you devastate the dollar's value, stripping it of its role as a reliable medium of exchange.
Economists suggest that what tipped us over the edge for inflation was this $1.9 trillion, supposedly rescuing America, but what it did is it's crushed the economy. Because if you increase the money supply, the amount of dollars that are actually out there to spend, all while a supply chain crisis is going on and there are actually decreased goods, you have more dollars competing for fewer goods, and you get inflation.
The savings you counted on for the future become a black hole, offering no security, only the grim prospect of speculation and uncertainty of such. What emerges is a zero-sum economy, where one person's gain is another's loss, eroding the core principle of mutual benefit. In this environment, currency manipulation becomes rampant, favoring those who prey on market instability, buying at costs below production values, manipulating market values, and creating the arbitrage to follow.
What's outrageous is your tax dollars are helping Wall Street buy up single-family homes. You're subsidizing Wall Street.
In 2021, corporations bought 28% of all the homes sold in Texas. That figure was 19% in Georgia and 16% in Florida. Companies like Pradium and Blackstone target these markets. Blackstone in particular has held large stakes in several companies that dominate the region.
This is not a pathway to prosperity. It is a recipe for economic ruin for the masses. Price controls are the height of economic foolishness, perpetuating the dangerous myth that you can get more for less.
In the early 1970s, the U.S. economy faced severe inflation. People demanded action. So in August 1971, Congress gave President Nixon the power to freeze wages and prices to try to halt inflation. Initially, these controls seemed to work, but before long, inflation came roaring back. Because prices were frozen, consumers could buy more for less, but businesses didn't have enough financial upside to produce enough to meet the demand. This led to widespread shortages, including the infamous gas crisis that plagued the decade, from Nixon to Ford to Carter.
The lifeblood of any private economy is profitability, and not all businesses can withstand the weight of fixed pricing. This inevitably leads to a scarcity of products as those unable to survive at mandated price levels are driven out of the market. In a competitive marketplace, profitability margins vary. Some businesses thrive on low margins due to minimal capital costs, labor, and overhead, while others cannot survive under the same constraints due to their higher cost structures. Imposing price caps is nothing short of a death sentence for these businesses. Although such caps may provide short-lived relief, they ultimately result in fewer goods and services available to consumers. Worse still, when you pair price controls with reckless open border policies that flood the economy with increased demand without a corresponding rise in productivity, you're scripting the downfall of a nation that once proudly housed the world's largest middle class, now moving toward extinction. The reality is simple. You can only consume what is produced, and if production lessens or stays the same while the population grows, no amount of price controls or monetary expansion will stave off economic collapse. When labor force participation declines, all you achieve is the worsening scarcity of products and services, spread over an ever-increasing population. The current government strategies of price controls and expanding the money supply are not just foolish, they're suicidal. It's time to stop applauding policies that lead to our own destruction, and start applying the common sense we were all born with. If we're serious about securing America's future, the solution is crystal clear. We must produce more than we consume. Each of us is a vital cog in the economic machine, measured by what we contribute, not by what we consume. Consumption must be driven by production. Let's stop putting the cart before the horse. Our collective survival depends on our drive to create. Real demand is grounded in tangible goods and services, where the value of each other's production benefits us all. Price controls only ensure that demand will outstrip supply, leading to the inevitable disappearance of our middle class and the future for our children. The power to determine value should reside with the people, not the government. Because when the government takes control, there's only one inevitable result: scarcity. As we allow ourselves to erode, we inch closer to a zero-sum survival mentality, where one person's existence is predicated on another's downfall. The idea that a state-controlled economy serves the masses is a dangerous delusion. It serves only the oligarchs at the expense of the people. Opening our borders while handing out free money in an economy with a shrinking labor force participation rate will lead to nothing but a world of less for more people. Produce nothing, and you will have nothing. It's time to stop chanting for stupidity and start demanding the true rebuilding of America's economy. The path forward is unmistakable, and there's no room for doubt.